There's a person in a garage right now, 3 hours into sanding a dresser nobody else wanted. The wood is scarred. The joints are loose. A reasonable person would have thrown it away. But this person is not trying to be reasonable. They are trying to finish something.
That impulse to take what is broken and make it whole is not random. It is not just a personality quirk or a weekend hobby. It is a pattern that runs deep, and it starts much earlier than most people realize. Restoring things is not about the object. It never was.
When a child grows up watching adults navigate instability, economic pressure, changing neighborhoods, institutions that no longer feel reliable, they develop a specific relationship with the physical world. Objects become anchors. Unlike people, unlike jobs, unlike promises, a wooden chair does not disappoint you. It just waits, and if you give it enough attention, it comes back.
This is the foundational psychology, not nostalgia, not craft. Attachment to controllable outcomes in a world that offered very few. Think about what it meant to own something durable in an era defined by planned obsolescence. Manufacturers had already figured out that products designed to break create repeat customers. Appliances, furniture, clothing, all of it built to a shorter lifespan than the generation before. The culture was accelerating. Things were becoming disposable. And certain people rejected that quietly, almost instinctively, by refusing to let objects die. They watched fathers and uncles work on engines in driveways. Not because it was cheaper, though it often was, but because there was a dignity in it. A man who could fix his own transmission did not need to ask permission from anyone. That image lodged itself in the developing brain as a symbol of autonomy. Self-sufficiency was not just practical, it was psychological armor. The restorer carries that image forward, even when hiring a professional would be faster, easier, and frankly less frustrating. They do not. They strip the paint themselves. They reupholster the seat themselves. Because the act of repair is not really about efficiency. It is about maintaining a relationship with competence, a quiet proof that they are still capable, that they have not entirely surrendered to a world that prefers you dependent. Now, here is what most people misunderstand about restorers. They're often labeled as sentimental. People assume they are clinging to the past, unable to let go. That is a surface reading. Look closer, and what you find is not sentimentality. It is a sophisticated form of meaning-making. An old radio someone pulls from a box at an estate sale is not just an object. It is a compressed archive of time. The person who restores it is not pretending the past was better. They are engaging in something more complex. They are translating an object's history into evidence that survival is possible, that things can be broken and still be worth saving. Psychologists call this narrative identity. The stories people construct around objects often mirror the stories they construct around themselves. A cracked veneer that gets repaired and refinished and placed back in a room of light is not just furniture. It is a private metaphor. Most restorers could not articulate this. They would say they just enjoy the work. And that is true. But enjoyment is always downstream of meaning. There is also something neurologically significant happening in the act of physical restoration. The brain does not process hands-on repair the same way it processes desk work or screen-based tasks. Working with tools and materials in a sequential sensory process, sanding, fitting, staining, aligning, activates what researchers sometimes call the procedural memory system. This is the same system engaged when playing an instrument, when training a physical skill, when the body learns rather than just the mind. The result is a particular quality of presence. The restorer is not thinking about the future or rehearsing the past. They are entirely inside a specific problem with a specific material in a specific moment. This is not accidental. For people who carry chronic anxiety or persistent rumination, restoration provides something that is increasingly difficult to find, a task with clear edges, visible progress, and a definite end state. The modern world offers very little of that. Most professional work is invisible. Emails sent produce responses that produce more emails. Projects end, but nothing feels finished. The restorer returns to the garage because there, completion is real. You can hold it. You can run a hand across it and feel that it is smooth where it was rough. That feedback is not trivial. It is deeply regulating. But push further, because the psychology does not stop at regulation. Restoration is also a form of moral statement. Not preached, not posted, not performed for an audience, just enacted. To restore something that culture has already discarded is to disagree with the judgment of disposability. It is to say that worth is not determined by age, by condition, by market value. That things, and perhaps people, deserve more consideration than they are typically given. That belief often has a personal history. Many dedicated restorers grew up feeling underestimated. Not dramatically, not in ways that made headlines in their own lives, but in the small, daily ways that accumulate. A talent dismissed, an effort unacknowledged, a version of themselves that others could not quite see. The restorer learned early that surface condition is a poor measure of actual value. They carry that lesson into the workshop. When they look at a damaged object and see what it could become, they are seeing with those same eyes, the ones that learn to look past the obvious verdict. This is why restorers are rarely impressed by new things. The newest model does not interest them the way a 40-year-old frame with solid bones does. They have trained their perception differently. They are reading for potential, not for shine. And this bleeds into their broader view of the world, in how they evaluate people, problems, situations. They are, almost universally, more patient than average, more willing to stay with something difficult, more likely to see through the damage to the structure beneath. That patience is not a personality trait they were born with. It was built, one slow project at a time. Here is where the loop closes. Think back to the garage. 3 hours in, sanding a dresser nobody else wanted. That image probably read at first as stubbornness, or eccentricity, or a slightly obsessive attachment to objects. But what was actually happening was more precise. A person was practicing a skill that goes far beyond woodworking.
They were practicing the discipline of sustained attention in the absence of immediate reward. They were practicing the revision of first judgments. They were practicing the belief that broken things contain, beneath the damage, something worth uncovering. That practice shapes a mind over decades. It builds a specific tolerance for incompleteness, for the uncomfortable middle phase where things are taken apart but not yet reassembled.
Most people are destabilized by that phase. They want resolution. They want to know how it turns out. The restorer has learned to live inside the uncertainty of a project in progress without panic, because they have done it enough times to trust the process. They have learned in the most literal and physical way possible that things can look worse before they look better. That taking something down to its base components is not destruction. It is preparation. The final realization is this. When a restorer picks up a broken object, they are not escaping the present. They are doing something far more disciplined. They are applying to a tangible problem the same belief they have quietly held about themselves all along, that what appears ruined is not always lost, that value does not expire with condition, that the right attention, applied patiently enough, can recover something true from almost anything. The dresser in the garage is never really about the dresser. It is a rehearsal for the belief that things can be made whole, including, quietly, themselves.